Okay, good evening, everyone. Council, staff, members of the public, if there's any there, and media. Tonight's public consultation is to review our fourth draft of our 2021 budget and to have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. So in terms of our 2021 budget process, just quickly, I'll just go through our budget process and the timeline that occurred this year. So it began in August 2020. We did get slated by members of the public, council, and management. 2021 budget goals, objectives, and guidelines and timeline report were approved by council in August, and the estimated calculated municipal price index at that time was approved at 1.5%, and staff were then directed to bring forward a draft budget within the municipal price index. In September and October, management worked on our departmental 3-year operating budgets as well as our 10-year capital plan. In November, I met with each departmental management team to review their draft budget documents, which we're calling draft number 1. We pulled those together. Then we met as an all management team to review all of the departmental draft budget documents, and that became draft number 2. Finally, after some fine tuning and finalizing with each of the senior management team, we finalized the 2021 budget draft number 3 in November and presented that at a special committee of the whole budget meeting on November 24th. It included 2021 budget summary, a 3-year operating budget, our 10-year capital plan, as well as a 10-year capital funding summary, departmental budget goals and objectives, as well as capital justification sheets, and the potential tax impact summary was brought forth at that meeting at 1.4%. Town operating tax impact was 0.4%, and there was a town capital investment impact of 1%, and policing has come in at a 0% tax impact. Which brings us to December, and this evening, the public consultation to receive input on draft number 4. Next meetings in the process, we do have a special committee of the whole budget meeting tonight, immediately following this public consultation. Also on the schedule, if required, we always do add an extra meeting to the schedule, but if it's required, we've got a special committee of the whole budget meeting on January 19th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And if that meeting is required, council will then be in a position to ratify the 2021 budget on February 10th council meeting in 2021. Just briefly, I'll go through the 2021 budget public survey and some of the top responses. The detailed public survey information was already presented and published at a previous, I believe it was the September 9th committee of the whole meeting. But I'll just run through the budget questions and some of the top answers. How many people live in your household? The top answer at 47% was 2. What is the age of the person filling out the survey? The top answer was 28% of ages between 55 and 64. How do you receive information regarding the town's budget and budget process? And it's nice to see that the town's email notification subscription has increased, and that was the top, and certainly during COVID, that was the top answer at 42%, that they received it via our email notification. Question number 4, Below is a list of town services, and we asked if they would indicate if the service level should be enhanced, resulting in a higher tax increase, maintained, resulting in a moderate tax increase, or reduced, resulting in no tax increase. The top responses related to enhancing services related to road network at 31%, and tourist and economic development at 26%. The top responses relating to maintaining service levels, winter control at 79%, and signals and lighting at 75%. The top responses related to reducing service levels, resulting in no tax increase. The top response was council at 51%, administration at 47%, and community development and support at 47%. Question number 5, what top 6 capital projects the town considering 2021 budget process? So some of the projects that are in the 2021 budget, the top responses related to the fire department's self-contained breathing apparatus replacement, the arena roof replacement, snowplow replacement, Robert Street well testing, the library's lower level development, and the Ojibwe landing. Question number 6, what are your short-term or long-term capital project priorities, if any? The top responses, typically it's the same every year, but no surprise that number 1 is roads. Number 2 response was related to sidewalks, and the third response was related to the construction of a community center for a new arena and curling club. Question number 7, given all the programs and services provided by the town, how would you rate the value you're receiving for your tax dollars? So 52% of respondents was the highest response, and they answered good value. Number 8, which statement best represents your position regarding taxation? I support a moderate tax increase. 51% responded that they would support a moderate tax increase. Question number 9, what top 3 suggestions would you make in order to improve town services? The top 3 responses were shared services or amalgamation. The second response, highest response, was online services and communication. The third highest response was arena and recreation activities. Question number 10, what top 3 services does the town of Penetanguishene do very well, needing little to no improvement? Again, no surprise, I think every year kudos go out to our roads crew, and number 1 top service was snow plowing, mentioned quite a bit in the surveys. Number 2 is fire services, and number 3 parks and recreation programming. Question number 11 was just a space for the public or the survey respondents to provide additional comments to the mayor, council, and management to consider for the 2021 budget process. And the top responses related to being fiscally responsible, no tax increases. Number 2 was shared services, and number 3 was attract businesses to town and downtown improvements. So that was just a summary on the budget survey and the top responses. Again, as I mentioned, if anybody wanted to view the full responses and comments related to the budget survey, it was published on the September 9th Committee of the Whole agenda. So how did we get here? So just going back to 2020 and looking at our operating and capital and OPP budgets and our total last year, for 2020, it was $11,185,692. As I mentioned, on September 9th, Council approved and directed staff to come back with a 2021 budget along the same lines as our municipal price index that we calculated at 1.5%. So on November 24th, we brought forth to Special Committee of the Whole budget meeting our third draft, third management draft, and presented that to committee at a 1.4% tax impact. Over the 2020 tax levy, there was an increase of $159,356. 0.4% of that increase, or just about $50,000, was related to the town's operating budget. $109,000, or 1% impact, was related to the town's capital-based budget. And the OPP tax levy for 2021 has a 0% tax impact. This evening, we are presenting information related to draft number 4, and that was as a result, some changes were made following our November 24th meeting. I will go into detail later on what those changes are, but tonight we're looking at draft 4, and it's coming in at a total tax levy of $11,354,498, or a 1.5% tax increase. Which equals $168,806 over the 2020 tax levy. Again, breaking it down by operating and capital, 1% remains for the capital tax impact and a 0.5% increase related to our operating budget. The net change, I believe there's another slide. Yes, there is another, the next slide is related to the net change, but the net change between draft 3 and draft 4 is $9,450, or 0.1%, which is, those changes brought us to the current 1.5% tax impact. The changes that we did make since the last meeting and direction at that meeting by Committee of the Whole, we did increase the planning operating budget by $25,000 approximately for wages and benefits to expand into a full-time contract junior planner position from our current part-time position. We also increased the municipal law enforcement operating budget by almost $32,000 for wages and benefits, again, to expand our current part-time contract to a full-time contract by law enforcement officer position. We also increased arena and parks operating budget by $62,000 for wages and benefits for a full-time facility operator. All 3 staffing positions, as we discussed at our meeting in November, were recommended to be funded using our service delivery review budget line, so there would be no tax impact. So our service delivery review budget line currently had $166,000 in there, and that would have been earmarked to be transferred to our service delivery review reserve for service delivery review projects that were identified in our plan. But we've reallocated those funds for what we feel our service delivery review opportunities in terms of increasing levels of service for these staff positions. So that is permanent funding already in the budget, so there is no tax impact. And the actual service delivery review transfer to reserve is obviously being reduced by that $129,000, so that those funds can be reallocated and to fund the staffing positions. The other changes that we incurred as a direction from staff in November were related to the community grant requests. So Georgian Bay General Hospital capital request for $15,000 is now included in the 2021 budget draft number 4. It's to be funded from the Community Capital Grant Program. Therefore, it's already in the budget. There's no tax impact. Southern Georgia Bay Physician Recruitment request for $8,500 is included in the 2021 budget draft number 4. And the recommended funding was through the Community Development Fund Reserve for the same amount. So it didn't increase our taxation either. Sistema, Huronia Music Academy requested $1,000, as well as Midland Penitentiary Machine District CERT requested $2,000. And they have been included in draft number 4 of our budget, and both are recommended being funded by the Council Contingency Fund. Since the Council Contingency Fund is already in our budget, there's no tax increase related to those 2 requests being approved. There were 2 other changes since the November 24th meeting. We decreased council membership budget line by 25% of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Initiative membership discount that's being offered. Just some additional information that we received since the last meeting. If council wishes to leave that membership in the budget, it was reduced to reflect the membership price of, I believe, $1,650. We increased corporate miscellaneous operating budget to include a new transfer to Attainable Housing Reserve for $10,000, as it is identified in the corporate strategic plan, and staff have been discussing it and felt that this was a good step, at least, to start a new reserve and to set some money aside on an annual basis until a plan or a project has been approved by council. So the net impact of those 2 changes is the $9,450 that I mentioned, which equals 0.1%. The other item that staff made a change after the November 24th meeting was just related to the wastewater operating budget, which obviously doesn't have a tax impact, but there was $9,500 increase to benefits for a recent retiree. On the next slide, it's just a breakdown by section: finance and corporate services, transportation and environmental, recreation and community services, planning and development, library, as well as our capital base budget, our policing levy, and our total tax levy. Comparison 2020 over 2021 over 2020 figures, and this is taxation only. So it does identify that FCS for 2021 budget, there's a $447,000 change, a reduction of about 13.8%. Transportation and environmental, there's a 6.6% change year over year, or $193,000. For recreation and community services, 14.5% increase over 2020, or $196,000. And planning and development, 33% increase over 2020, or $107,000. The library, about $9,300, or 2%. And as I mentioned, our capital-based budget will be increasing by an additional $109,000, or an 8.9% increase over last year. With our policing levy staying the same, that's the breakdown for our total tax levy in 2021 of $11,354,000 and change, or $168,000 increase over 2020 is a large revenue generator, FINRA, and put into corporate services, which reflects the reduction in the net levy for FCS for the 2021 budget. Again, this is just a visual of our tax-supported 2021 budget, and again, comparing 2020 to 2021. So you'll notice, again, as I mentioned, finance and corporate services going down, but reallocating most of those funds over to other sections. Library, policing, pretty well close to 2020 budget levels. This is a summary of our 2021 budget for our rate-supported departments, building department, water department, and wastewater department, as well as the capital program related to water and wastewater. So overall, they're pretty well, very similar to the prior year, with only a $46,000 increase actually over 2020, and a 1% overall change in the rates related to building fees and the water and wastewater utility rates. Again, this is just a visual comparing 2020 rate-supported departments to 2021, and all four of them actually being very, very close to 2020 levels. Budget for all funding sources. So that would encompass, obviously, taxation, our building fees, our water and wastewater rates, as well as our other sources of funds for our capital program, which would include reserves, development charges, debt, subsidies, etc. Donations would be included in there as well. So this is our total 2021 budget by section. And the 2020 total budget was about $19.3 million. The 2021 budget from all funding sources is about 18.9 million. And overall, we're looking at a reduction of 425,000 or 2.2%. Mainly it's due to a change in our capital program from 2020 to 2021. But I might add that we still haven't finalized until the year end is complete. We haven't finalized our capital carry forward projects to be included in 2021 capital program. So I think that might work out to be the same capital program in the end, and a very similar overall total budget between 2020 and 2021. Some of the corporate-wide major drivers of the budget changes: reduced revenues due to COVID. We've estimated about $216,000 related to ice rentals, overall facility rentals, recreation programming, for example. That works out to be about a 1.9% tax impact. Salaries, wages, remuneration, and benefits, an increase of $140,000 or 1.2% tax impact, which includes forecasted increases related to our group benefit package costs. Also, as I mentioned, the increase related to the 3 positions that were presented on November 24th. So again, an increase of $129,000 related to staffing, however, funded within our own budget. So it was a 0% tax impact. Capital investment, as I mentioned, our capital-based budget will be going from $1.225 million to $1.335 million, or an increase of $109,000, which is a 1% tax impact. Another major budget driver for us every year is insurance. So we've estimated an annual increase at $60,000, which works out to be a 0.5% tax impact. Our preventative maintenance road program, we increase our investment in this program annually. And in 2021, there's a $35,000 increase or 0.3% tax impact. Our computer and IT infrastructure and applications, we have an increased investment in our 2021 budget of $36,000 or a 0.3% tax impact. To fund some of those major budget changes that increase our tax impact and our budgets, as I mentioned, we reallocated service delivery review budget line to fund our new staffing. We also have our new assessment growth from 2020. That's being used to offset budget changes this year. Oh, I forgot to mention, we do have an increase of $10,000 to start a new transfer to Attainable Housing Reserve. And finally, the other new source of funds to offset our major budget changes is our 2021 estimated new assessment growth, which is new taxation due to new home construction. And we have estimated that at 1.2% or $134,000. This slide just shows our debt reduction history. And cumulatively, our debt reduction over the last 10 years has been about $8 million, or an average of $800,000 per year. If you look at the 2021 budgeted figure, it is still above average, and yet a reduction over 2020. This is related to our final debenture payment occurring in 2021 related to the fire hall and the fire truck aerial. There's a partial payment that needs to be made on that debenture in 2021, but it will be paid in full in 2021. So $150,000 of that fire debenture payment has actually been reallocated to a new transfer to fire reserve, which is to be put away annually to finance the aerial truck replacement in 2030. I believe in our 2030 capital plan, it's a $900,000 vehicle. So by reallocating a portion of the fire debenture repayment to a transfer to the fire reserve, we will be financing and self-funding that purchase in 2030 and avoid having to take out another future fire debenture for that aerial truck. Also, just to mention, related to our debt, our current debt and our annual debt repayment limit that is legislated through the ministry, our 2020 limit is $3.8 million per year for debt repayment, and our actual debt limit is $48 million over 20 years. Our total debt repayment is at 36% of our legislated limit, and our current debt balance is at 32% of our legislated limit. So we're well below our annual debt repayment limits. This slide again just identifies and compares the 2020 tax levy to the 2021 draft number 4 tax supported tax levy. I just wanted to point out that our operating in 2021 is $8,354,000 and change. I just wanted to point out that obviously also included in there for operations are some other items such as transfers to capital reserves totaling $756,000 that we do annually put money away for asset management replacement. And again, as I mentioned, the fire reserve to fund future vehicles and equipment, as well as a transfer to capital reserve for public works for the same thing, for future replacement of vehicles and equipment. Also included in that operating budget figure is our preventative maintenance road program of about $385,000 in 2021. So again, just to point out that, you know, over 1.3 or $1.4 million of that is actually in our operating budget, but earmarked for roads and capital in terms of asset management for the entire corporation, as well as specifically for fire and public works. The next slide relates to the tax impact history. So overall tax impact, we are estimating for 2021 is 0.1%. I just did some analysis. Obviously, we won't know what the overall tax impact is until March or April when we get the county and the education tax rates. But an estimate based on the same reductions that occurred in 2020, if we get the same reductions that we experienced last year, our overall tax impact could be 0.1%. The town impact for 2021 is 1.5%. Our overall blended tax rate over the past 9 years, on average, has been 0.5% per year. And the municipal tax rate increase over the past 9 years, on average, has been 2.2% per year. So I think for the last 3 years, 2019 through 2021, we have been trending downwards on the town's municipal tax increase and below average. Again, as I mentioned, I did a preliminary estimate of the overall tax impact, assuming that we experienced the same reduction related to the county's growth as well as the education rates. So the town's total municipal tax impact of 1.5% works out to be $15.28 per $100,000 of CVA. But once we combine that with the total tax bill for the town, the county, OPP and education, the estimated overall tax impact could be 0.1% or $1.85 impact on per $100,000 of CVA for the average tax bill. I'm just checking the time, and I'll try to get through the rest of the capital budget slides in about 10 minutes. So hopefully, if anybody has any comments or questions, there'll be time for, I will leave time for a Q&A at the end. So obviously we present a 10-year capital plan to council and throughout the budget process. However, this presentation will focus on 2021 and 2022 as council does approve a 2-year capital budget. Our tax supported capital budget, historically, over the past 9 years, we've invested $10.8 million using taxation in our capital program. That investment averages out to be $1.2 million per year. So again, with the 2020 capital base budget increase to 1.225 and also the recommended increase for 2021 to 1.335 million, we are trending upwards, and we'd like to continue to increase that investment. And we're currently above average in terms of historical investment in our capital program using taxation. When you look at total capital investment, as I mentioned, using all sources of funds, reserves, development charges, subsidies, water and wastewater rates, etc. Our 9-year capital infrastructure investment has been $54 million. And on average, we've been investing into our capital infrastructure on average $6 million a year. This slide is related to our 2021 debt balances, as well as debt repayment and an anticipated new internal loan to be issued in early 2021 related to the wharf concrete repairs. So we do have 3 current debentures. And as I mentioned, the fire hall and aerial truck debenture will be paid in full in 2021. And then we also have the newer debentures that were issued for the sewage treatment plant expansion, as well as Main Street reconstruction. We do also have 4 internal loans, one related to Town Hall, and the other 3 related to Public Works. Thompson Fuller project, that's an older one. I believe it was related to lights, I believe. Fuller Avenue bike lane, as well as Champlain Road reconstruction. So our internal debt is currently around $3 million, and our external debenture debt is $12.8 million for a total debt balance of about almost 15.9 million. We do plan on, obviously, debt repayment in 2021 of about $833,000, and we do anticipate a new internal loan related to the wharf concrete repairs that were recently completed. I've just confirmed that all the invoices have come in, so I'll be working on that internal loan report in early 2021. So our year-end estimated year-end balance of 2021 is about $15.3 million in debt. This is our debt continuity schedule for 2021, and I just wanted to point out, if anybody wants to look at any of these slides in detail, I know you can't look at it all. The entire presentation has been published on the town's website under budgets and financial reports, as well as under the finance department's budget page. So if you want to look at it further, it'll be available. But what I did want to point out, obviously, as I mentioned, we have the 3 debentures, we have 4 internal loans. The 2 on the far right highlighted in yellow, I like those highlighted yellow boxes because it means that the debt has been paid in full. So not only will we have the fire hall debenture paid out in 2021, but Public Works will also have an internal loan that will be paid in full in 2021. So we will continue to analyze anytime new loans come on board with the repayment schedule, as well as when they're paid out. We'll analyze whether it's best suited to, and bring that forth to council, whether it's best suited to be reallocated to other debt payments. We have looked into our debentures, and there is no terms related to those debentures where we can pay out early or make larger payments. So any extra debt repayment that we want to apply to any loans would be on our internal loans. This schedule is our estimated reserves and reserve fund balances anticipated at the end of this year and projected to the end of 2021. So as you can see, there's a utilization of about $2.8 million in 2021 versus anticipated transfers into our reserves in 2021 of about 2.4 million. Obviously resulting in a year-over-year reduction to our reserves. But I just wanted to point out that we are using our reserves not only to tuck money away for long-term priorities or longer-term financial planning, but we're also utilizing our reserves to fund and finance purchases and capital projects. So, for example, we might be transferring money into a reserve for a couple of years to make a very large purchase in the third year, as we did with as recently as we did with one of the large fire vehicle replacements. So you're going to see some ups and downs in our reserves just for that fact that some of those reserves we are using as a financing tool. Again, another example would be $650,000 in our municipal modernization funds that went into our reserve, which obviously increased our reserve balances. But the point of that reserve is just to hold on to it so that multi-year projects related to the municipal modernization fund can be utilized. So we'll be drawing out those funds. Again, reducing the overall year to year. I might add, though, that historically, I did take a look at our reserves, and as far as 10 years ago, our reserves were at a balance of about 5.7 million. Our 10-year average of a reserve balance, reserve and reserve fund balance, is about 8.9 million. So we still are trending higher than average, and obviously our goal is obviously to continue to increase our reserve balances. The 2021 capital budget, taxation only, is our capital base budget is $1.335 million. This slide identifies the breakdown of those funds and the projects that are in our 2021 capital budget related to each section. And in 2021, $583,000 or 44% is for recreation and recreation and community services capital projects. $411,000 or 31% is for transportation and environmental capital projects. $255,000 or 19% is for finance and corporate services and fire capital projects. $70,500 or 5% is for planning and community development projects. And $15,000 or 1% is for library capital projects. And again, that's our taxation only capital budget. Our total capital budget for 2021 from all funding sources is almost $4.9 million. 48% of that is for transportation and environmental projects. 26% is for recreation and community services projects. 20% is for finance and corporate services. And again, fire is included in their capital projects. 3% for planning and development, and 3% for library. So if you look at the breakdown for the largest investment in our 2021 capital program, it's just over $1 million related to roads projects. And I think the next highest there is fire, $758,000. And then the other higher investment areas obviously is water and wastewater capital projects. Some of those capital projects, some of the higher ticketed, higher cost projects are highlighted here on this slide. For fire, we've got the self-contained breathing apparatus replacement, total project cost of $263,000. For public works, we've listed a few of the higher priced capital projects. So obviously reconstruction of Chatham Street, that does have a water and wastewater component. So in total, it's over $1 million project. Another large capital project is the replacement of a tandem snowplow of about $300,000. Again, we've got Robert Street well testing, road division, garage, wash bay, engineering, retaining wall replacement at Lucy and Robert, and drainage improvements on Payette Drive. And for wastewater, a generator tank replacement and upgrades. For the water department, replace the Robert Street West well house building. And for recreation and community services, we've got an arena flat roof replacement. The wharf repairs to the launch ramp and sidewalk at $200,000, and the town gateway reconstruction at $285,000 total project cost, and the overhead bridge trailhead at $292,000. Very quickly, I'll run through the 2022 capital budget. So it is anticipated, recommended to be increased, our capital taxation investment by an additional $100,000. So our total 2022 capital budget is $1.435 million. And it looks like to me 2022 transportation and environmental, public works and road services has a very large capital program on their plate in terms of the tax supported portion of it anyways, $909,000 or 63% is for transportation and environmental projects. And then 396,000 or 28% of that is for recreation and community services capital projects. The 2022 capital budget in total is $3.8 million, and 75% of that entire 2022 capital program is related to transportation and environmental. And again, the number one investment is roads at just over $1.2 million. Some of those larger capital projects in 2022, completing the reconstruction of Chatham Street from Burke to Brock, another large replacement of a tandem snowplow, expanding the roads division garage and wash bay, and engineering to take place for Fox Street on Sheridan to Broad, drainage improvements on Dufferin Street, and concrete gutter installation Robert Street West. For recreation and community services in 2022, the larger projects are the arena roof replacement, the reconstruction of Memorial tennis courts, the replacement of Charles Scott Playground, and engineering to resurface the town dock parking lot. The capital funding summary just breaks down the sources of funds that I mentioned for our 10-year capital program. And it just breaks down how we fund our entire capital program. Again, as I mentioned, in 2021, it's $4.8 million, and in 2022, it's $3.8 million. Over 10 years, we're looking at an additional capital investment of about $38 million. And that's funded through taxation, water and wastewater rates, grants, reserves, development charges. That's it for my presentation. So if anybody has any questions or comments, all of the senior managers, I believe, are in attendance if there's any specific questions from the media and public.
Perhaps what we should do at this point, given that we do have the media on the line, Carrie, is ask if the Midland Today has any questions that they'd like to ask at this point. So I'm going to suggest that probably silence is our indicator, and that perhaps there aren't any questions. Of course, members of council can, I just see Midland Today has made a note that they do not have any questions. Of course, council can ask questions as well, but this is on our 7 o'clock agenda as well. And so council can opt to save their questions if they have any. And that way, Mayor LaRue can get the 7 o'clock meeting started.